Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. One of the biggest questions I get on my channel all the time is what cold air intake do I recommend for a C7 Corvette? And this is the one I find works the best for the C7, especially the ZR1. Ultimately, what this video is going to be about today is the intake that I recommend, and this is it right here. So as soon as the box arrives, I immediately know it's cool because it's got the Performance Jake logo on it, but we're actually going to take this to another level. We're going to open this thing up, take the intake out, and we're going to hit up the blackout tinting for them to put their little touch on it. So anyway, we're gonna jump in the car, which just so happens to be my sister-in-law's today, because we're taking her car to blackout tinting to get the windows tinted. That's right, blackout tinting does everything, it seems, but they are also gonna do something special on the intake, so let's jump in the car and head up there now. All right, guys, we are here at blackout tinting, and Nate and crew just finished tinting this window to kind of match the factory tinted rear windows, but that's not really why we're here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. We are gonna head over, talk to Josh here in a second about the cold air intake project. This is where the magic happens here at blackout tinting. So this is the protective sticker that comes on this thing. I'm just gonna pull that off. It's almost kind of satisfying, but this is on there just so when you're installing stuff, you don't scratch up the window. But Josh is going to take care of that in a second. This is XPEL. So in case you haven't noticed yet, I'm a little bit stupid crazy about XPEL, and this is going on an air intake just because this is plexiglass and it will kind of scratch pretty easily, and I want it to look pretty for as long as possible. So Josh here at Blackout Tinting is going to help us out with it. It's just a little piece of XPEL, but that's what he's going to be doing right now.
Give her a little alcohol bath.
It still has that new intake smell. Was almost too easy, huh? Mm-hmm. So if you guys remember, not too long ago, I had Josh do the XPEL on the back of my license plate cover, and he actually said that wasn't the weirdest thing he's ever done. You actually did a prosthetic limb, right?
We did.
So it covered prosthetic limb with XPEL. I came in today and I said, you know what? I'm gonna be the first one to ask him to put XPEL on my intake as well. You haven't done one on an intake before,
never
right?
Never an intake.
All right, so I got two things going on. I got the intake and the license plate frame that he has never done, but it is not the weirdest thing he's done. So XPEL can be used, it's pretty versatile. You can use it on pretty much anything. Amber joked around and said that next time I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna ask you to XPEL me.
Wouldn't surprise me. We do countertops sometimes too.
Yeah, I saw one sitting over there. You can put XPEL on granite countertops, guys. For any of you high rollers out there that have granite countertops, you can put XPEL on it. Just like that. So the best installation is one that you don't even see. Just the added protection. So now we're gonna head home. I'm gonna put this thing in the car and see how beautiful it looks. Like I said, GM says that this adds an additional 17 horsepower to a ZR1. So I don't know how much of that I'm actually going to feel whenever the car already has 755, but we'll see. All right, guys, and we are back from blackout tinting. So I'm going to go ahead and get this intake installed. I'm going to give you guys kind of an overview of how to do it because I know I've showed it before on my Z06, but with the ZR1, it's a little bit different because of this carbon fiber area here that has to be removed first. So I'm not going to get hugely into detail with this, but I am going to show you a couple pointers along the way. So anyway, let's go ahead and get that intake installed. First things first, we're going to go ahead and remove the 4 bolts that hold the carbon fiber supercharger cover on. These are 10mm bolts. I'm not going to make you guys wait through the entire process. Instead, I'm going to springboard us forward via the power of internet magic. And there is the stock supercharger lid on a ZR1 if you guys haven't seen it yet. The next step is going to be to remove the lower rain or water deflector here, and this is held on with 4 7mm bolts. There is a bolt here, 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 and over on the other side. Again, I'm not going to bore you with the details. You just take those bolts out and pull that piece out. But we are going to do it again through the power of internet magic. So let's snap away that piece as well. So with the water deflector out and the supercharger cover off, now we have easy access to the intake tube and the intake box. The next step is going to be to remove the two metal worm clamps that are holding the intake tube to the actual throttle body and to the intake box. This can be easily accomplished with an 8mm socket, or just a flathead screwdriver will also do the same thing. And then lastly, there is a breather tube you can see running down that connects to the intake tube as well that you'll have to remove. Just push in the gray clip and pull up and it separates very easily. Now, since we're in the mode of snapping everything away, I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the intake tube here, because you guys have probably all seen it a million times before. So let's get that tube out of there. I promise I'm done with the corny transitions here, but I just wanted to make this as quick as possible since I know a lot of you guys have seen this before. Next, we're going to go ahead and get the actual airbox out of there. So that has the MAF sensor in it, as well as a couple 10mm bolts that we'll have to take apart and get the entire assembly out. I will show you this part because there's not a lot of documentation on the actual Airbox install, at least not the one from GM. Luckily for me, I have this giant hole in my hood. It makes it a little bit easier to get down in here and show you guys better angles at the screws we're going to want to remove, which is right there and right there. Those are both T25 Torx head screws that once we remove, the entire back side of the filter housing will crack open so we can get to the air filter, as well as remove the MAF sensor and take that entire thing out. To remove the mass airflow sensor, you just want to slide back on this red clip and then squeeze and pull that back. So just like that, it is unclipped. Now to remove this is just two tiny Phillips head screws to take this out of the actual housing, but we'll wait until the entire thing's out of the car for that, because that does have to be moved over to the new airbox. As you can see, with the two T25 bolts loosened, this whole thing actually opens up like that, and we can actually just pull up on it to separate it from the stock housing, just like that. So now we'll take that out and put it over on the workbench. Now, with the stock airbox taken apart and the stock air filter out again, I just want to show you guys how generic this thing looks once again. And the weird part is that it's the exact same filter from the Stingray to the Grand Sport to the Z06 to the ZR1. It's the same part number, same filter, same everything. Now, apparently that's fine as far as the performance is concerned with the Stingray, because the Stingray actually doesn't gain any power from the new intake like the rest of the models do. So this intake on a Stingray will gain you no extra horsepower, or so GM says. Now, of course, all of this is without a tune. Without a tune, this gains 11 horsepower on a Z06 and 17 horsepower on a ZR1. Not that that's a huge concern for me, I just like the fact that it looks cool and the filter is a little bit more open, so it breathes a little bit better. Another interesting thing is the fact that the stock airbox has this mesh screen in there. Now, that might not seem like a real interesting thing to you, but the new air intake box does not have this. So I'm wondering what the purpose of this ever was, because obviously if it was really necessary, that box there would have it as well. So something's different with the way GM designed this one. Anyway, we're just gonna go ahead and take out the MAF sensor here. As you can see, it's just two Phillips head screws to pop that out, put it in a new airbox. Once the mass airflow sensor is out, you'll go ahead and move over to the new intake, slide it right in there, and bolt it in just as easy as that. The next step is to remove this passenger side hood strut. So these are actually pretty easy to remove. You can just slip a small screwdriver right down in here and slide this pin up, just like that. And now you can just pull that free. So with that out of the way, or at least a little bit extra maneuverability, you can get down to the bolt that's down here. And there's actually gonna be one on this side and one over here. So it's gonna be a 10mm bolt that you'll wanna take out, and then this entire assembly will come straight out. Now here's the interesting part. Two of these bolts came out to basically release the stock air intake. The problem is it's kind of stuck in there. So to really get this thing out and maneuvered past the coolant lines and everything, it's a little bit of a tricky ordeal, but I'll try to show as much as I can. Let's see what how we can get this thing out of here. So right over here, there's actually a little bit of a clip. You'll want to pull pretty hard to separate the two down here. It's just a ball that sits inside of a rubber coupling. So that part can just be pulled apart, but the other two bolts do have to come out. And then we can just finagle this out around the coolant hoses and the hood strut and all that good stuff. There. Not too bad, I guess. Out of the box we just took out of the car, we are going to take out all of these rubber grommets. So there's 3 altogether, and transfer them over to the new box. I have the rubber grommets already transferred here, but I haven't put in the metal parts yet. So the metal piece fits inside of the grommet that the bolt actually passes through to basically give it some structure or rigidity. So I will go ahead and just push these in. They just literally slide right into the rubber part, just like that. Before we put the new intake in, I just kind of wanted to give you guys a look into the cold air section where the car actually pulls the air from. So as you can see, it literally pulls it from inside of the fender where all the actual air from the front radiators and everything comes up through. So it is actually pulling cool air through the fender there. Pretty interesting design, but with the new one, it's a little bit more of a freer flowing design. For those of you wondering what the real difference is between these two intakes, it's pretty apparent once you get the stock one out how much restriction there really is in that plastic air box. Now, if you look around the filter here, pretty tight right in here, not a whole lot of room for airflow. But if we go over to the new one, you can see it is much more opened up. There's no plastic right there. It's all been trimmed away. A lot more room for air to flow through there. Now, both of them together, you can clearly see this is the bigger intake box for sure. Now that combined with the fact that this is likely a freer flowing air filter than the stock cardboard thing, really gives this one a bump in airflow, and of course gives a ZR1 an extra 17 horsepower because of how much more air can get in there. Like I said, it doesn't really matter much for the Stingray because the Stingray didn't really benefit from the additional air. This box here was designed perfectly for the Stingray, whereas the Z06 and ZR1 being supercharged wanted more air than this box could really provide. So without a tune, 17 horsepower on the ZR1, 11 on the Z06, none on a Stingray. So with a tune, I'm sure you'd get something out of this with the Stingray, but that's another video there. We are gonna go ahead and put the new Airbox in now. This is definitely gonna be tricky because this is a much bigger box than the stock one, so wish me luck. All right, that was actually easier than I thought it was gonna be. Ultimately, you just wanna make sure you unclip these coolant lines. I think that's what really helped out. Now we're just gonna tighten up the two 10mm bolts here and then start putting everything back together. We're pretty much done. Plug the mass airflow sensor back in. All right, guys, so I got the intake box in. I'm not gonna bore you with the details of actually putting the tube and everything back on because it's the opposite of disassembly. I just wanted to let you guys know the install was not too difficult. It looks pretty cool. I like the look of the intake. And like I said, it adds 17 extra horsepower, so it's obviously pretty cool. But anyway, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up for today's video. If you guys liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions about the content, anything we talked about today or ever on the channel, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below or shoot me an email, horse.power.obsessed@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to answer anything you may have for me. If you guys are interested in an intake like this for your own C7, I'll put all the information down in the description below. I'm also gonna link to the video down in the description and up here somewhere to where I installed the Attack Blue air filter on the stock Airbox and how I felt about that. Now, stay tuned for the updates to this, guys, because I'm actually gonna put this on the dyno and show what the differences really are between this intake, the factory intake with the stock filter, factory intake with the Attack Blue filter, factory intake with a BMS air filter. I'm gonna compare all of them and see which one's really the best bang for your buck. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You're gonna wanna see all of that content that I have coming very soon, and you guys will be happy to know my C8 is almost here. So you're definitely gonna wanna subscribe for that content. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next upload.